family called me a disappointment. Then my brother's boss saw me at dinner and gasped, "CEO, ma'am, what a disappointment." 3 words. Just 3 simple words. Spoken in my father's clipped, surgical precision. I still hear them some nights when I'm alone in my penthouse apartment, staring out at the glittering city lights that should remind me of how far I've come, but instead only illuminate how far I've fallen from grace in my family's eyes. It was my college graduation day, May 15th, unusually warm, the kind of spring day where hope blooms, like the dogwoods dotting the campus quad. I remember the weight of my honors cords around my neck, the slick feel of my polyester gown against my skin, and the hollow ache in my chest as I scanned the crowd for familiar faces. 4 years of sleepless nights, of maintaining a 3.95 GPA while running the university's business club and completing 2 competitive internships, all culminating in this moment. They were seated near the back. My father, ramrod straight in his charcoal suit, the same one he wore to medical conferences and hospital board meetings. My mother, elegant in navy blue, her smile strained as she waved with uncharacteristic enthusiasm, compensating for the stone-faced man beside her. My brother Alex wasn't there. His own medical school exams took precedence, as most things in our family did when they involved medicine. The Jensen family legacy was written in prescription pads and surgical sutures. 3 generations of doctors. My grandfather, the pioneering cardiologist. My grandmother, one of the first female neurologists in the state. My father, the celebrated trauma surgeon. My mother, the respected pediatrician. And Alex, the prodigy already being courted by top medical schools before he'd even finished his undergraduate biology degree. Then there was me, Katherine Jensen, the aberration, the one who dared to submit business school applications alongside the expected medical school ones. It's just a backup plan. I'd assured them at first, not ready to confess my true passion lay in startup innovation and corporate strategy, not in anatomy and biochemistry. I'd played the dutiful daughter through high school and most of college, taking the prerequisite science courses, volunteering at the hospital where my parents practiced, nodding along to dinner conversations about patient cases and medical breakthroughs. But senior year brought clarity. While my peers panicked over MCAT scores, I found myself energized by my business courses, staying late to discuss market disruption theories with professors, losing sleep over exciting startup ideas rather than dreading another biology lab. When the acceptance letter from Harvard Business School arrived the same week as one from Johns Hopkins Medicine, the choice crystallized something that had been forming in me for years. I chose business, and in doing so, I chose to become a family disappointment. After the graduation ceremony, we gathered near the biology building, my father's suggestion, of course. A subtle reminder of the path I'd abandoned. "Congratulations," my mother said, hugging me tightly. I could feel her heartbeat, rapid and anxious. "We're so proud." But my father remained a step back, hands clasped behind him, eyes assessing me as he might evaluate a patient's prognosis. "So, Harvard Business School." "Yes," I said, refusing to apologize for my choice. "I start in August." "Such a waste," he said, his voice clinical. "All that potential." "Robert," my mother cautioned, a hand on his arm. "No, Eleanor. She should hear this. 4 years at one of the finest pre-med programs in the country. Recommendations I personally arranged with colleagues. A guaranteed residency track at Massachusetts General. Each discarded opportunity enumerated like charges against me. All thrown away to become what? Another soulless corporate drone pushing paper and chasing profits? The surrounding celebration faded. Families. Taking photos. Graduates, embracing, laughter and tears blending into background noise, as my father's disappointment expanded to fill all the space between us. "I don't expect you to understand," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "You're right. I don't understand throwing away a chance to actually help people, to make a difference, to continue a proud family tradition." "Robert, please. Not here," my mother pleaded. He straightened his nervous habit from years of hospital administration meetings. "You've made your choice, Catherine, but choices have consequences." Then came those 3 words, delivered not in anger, but with something worse: cold finality. "What a disappointment." He turned and walked away. My mother hesitated, torn between husband and daughter, before whispering, "He'll come around. Just give him time," and hurrying after him. I stood alone in my graduation gown, honors cords suddenly feeling like weights dragging me down rather than symbols lifting me up. That was the last time I saw my parents for 3 years. Harvard Business School was freedom and exile simultaneously. I threw myself into my studies with the same intensity that had once been directed toward fulfilling my family's medical aspirations. If I was going to be a disappointment, I decided, I would at least be a spectacularly successful one. While my classmates networked at mixers and built social connections, I built business models. While they took weekend trips to New York and the Hamptons, I interned at startups and venture capital firms. My apartment walls became covered with sticky notes and strategy maps. My phone remained silent of family calls, except for occasional updates from Alex, who had become the reluctant bridge between my new world and the one I'd left behind. "Dad mentioned you the other day," he said during one rare call in my 2nd year. "I'm sure that was pleasant," I replied, balancing my phone while reviewing a case study. "He saw your name on some business competition finalist list. One of his colleagues has a daughter in your program." I waited for more, for some hint of paternal pride. "He just said to tell you congratulations if I talk to you," Alex finished awkwardly. That was the pattern we established. Distant recognition of achievements without reconciliation. Christmas cards, addressed only by my mother. Brief, stilted calls on birthdays. A family fractured but not completely broken. When I graduated from Harvard with distinction, neither of my parents attended. I told myself it didn't matter. I had job offers from 3 top consulting firms and a promising tech startup. I had mentors singing my praises and classmates who respected, if not always understood, my relentless drive. I chose the startup rapid-scale technology, taking a lower salary but negotiating for equity that my classmates thought was foolish. Why sacrifice a 6-figure consulting job for lottery tickets at an unproven company? They asked. Because I needed to prove something, not just to my family, but to myself, that I could build something meaningful outside the prescribed path that had been laid out for me since birth. That business wasn't just about pushing paper and chasing profits, but could transform industries and improve lives. Rapid Scale's technology streamlined supply chain logistics for medical equipment, ironically bringing me adjacent to the healthcare world I'd rejected. I worked 18-hour days, slept on an office couch more often than my apartment bed, and poured every ounce of my analytical ability into scaling the company. Within 2 years, we'd secured Series B funding and tripled our client base. Within 3, we were acquired by a larger tech firm for a sum that transformed my modest equity into life-changing wealth. I was 31, financially independent, and headhunted by Horizon Innovations to become their chief strategy officer. My father would have called it luck. I called it vindication. At Horizon, I discovered my true talent, seeing connections and opportunities others missed. While the tech sector chased flashy consumer applications, I guided Horizon toward enterprise solutions that solved real business problems. Our software helped hospitals reduce administrative costs and improve patient care, another ironic touch that wasn't lost on me. The promotion to CEO came after I orchestrated a merger that competitors had deemed impossible, bringing together two rival technologies into a seamless ecosystem that became industry standard almost overnight. At 32, I became the youngest chief executive in our industry and one of the few women at that level. The Forbes cover followed 6 months later. Katherine Jensen, the quiet revolutionary transforming health tech. The photo showed me in a simple black blazer, arms crossed, expression determined, but not smiling. The article praised my surgical precision in cutting through corporate inefficiencies and doctor-like dedication to solving systemic problems, medical metaphors that the writer couldn't have known carried personal weight. I kept a copy of the magazine, but never sent it to my parents. Pride prevented me from what would feel like begging for their approval. Besides, if they cared, they would have found it themselves. My name was becoming known in business circles. My success was no longer hidden. The company grew. My personal wealth grew. My contact with my family shrank to annual holiday cards and occasional text messages. Alex had completed his residency and joined our father's hospital, continuing the Jensen medical dynasty. I bought a penthouse, donated to charities, mentored young women in business, and told myself that the hollow feeling that sometimes woke me at 3 a.m. was just the natural anxiety of leadership. Then came the text from Alex, 3 weeks ago. Dad's turning 65. Family dinner at Maison Laurent on the 20th. 7 p.m. Mom really wants you there. I stared at the message for hours before responding. 10 years had passed since graduation day. 10 years of building a life defined by its departure from family expectations. 10 years of proving I wasn't a disappointment to everyone, except the people who had first applied that label. What would showing up now signify? Forgiveness? Reconciliation? Or just reopening old wounds? My thumb hovered over the screen, uncertain. Then I thought of my mother, who had always been caught in the middle, whose gentle, "he'll come around," had never quite materialized. She deserved better than being collateral damage in this cold war between father and daughter. Okay, I typed and hit send before I could reconsider. 3 weeks of second-guessing followed. I rescheduled meetings to free the evening. I bought and returned 3 different outfits, before settling on a simple black dress professional, but not ostentatious. I rehearsed small talk about neutral topics, determined to avoid both confrontation and capitulation. As the day approached, dreams of my father's dismissive words returned with increasing frequency. In my sleeping mind, I was always reaching for something just beyond my grasp, while his voice echoed, "What a disappointment." But awake, I was Katherine Jensen, CEO of Horizon Innovations, named to Fortune's 40 Under 40, with a net worth that would have paid for generations of medical school. I had built something meaningful. I had defied expectations. I had proven my path was valid. Hadn't I? The question lingered as I pulled up to Maison Laurent, 15 minutes late by design. Through the restaurant windows, I could see them already seated, my father's silver hair, my mother's perfect posture, Alex's animated gesturing as he spoke to someone whose back was to me. I took a deep breath, smoothed my dress, and walked inside. The weight of a decade's estrangement and achievement balanced precariously on my shoulders. Maison Laurent was exactly the type of restaurant my family had always favored. World elegance with starched white tablecloths, crystal stemware that caught the light from ornate chandeliers, and hushed conversations punctuated by the gentle clink of silver against fine china. A place where appearances mattered. A place where the Jensen family had always belonged. The maître d' recognized me immediately, something that still surprised me despite happening with increasing frequency since the Forbes cover. "Miss Jensen," he said with a slight bow, "your family is already seated. Please, follow me." Each step across the dining room felt like crossing a threshold between worlds, from the universe I had built for myself back into the gravitational pull of family expectations. I maintained my CEO posture, shoulders back, chin slightly raised, the stance that projected confidence in boardrooms and investor meetings. Armor, of sorts. They saw me before I reached the table. My mother's face lit up, a genuine smile warming her features as she half rose from her seat. My father's expression remained carefully neutral, though his eyes tracked my approach with clinical assessment. Alex grinned and stood completely, waving as though I might somehow miss them in the intimate space. Beside him sat a distinguished-looking man in his early 60s, silver-haired and impeccably dressed, in what I immediately recognized as a custom Brioni suit. The fourth person at the table, someone I hadn't expected, was a young woman about my age, stylishly conservative in appearance, who watched my approach with polite curiosity. "Catherine," my mother said, her voice carrying that slight tremor of emotion she always tried to conceal. "You look wonderful." I leaned down to accept her embrace, breathing in the familiar scent of Chanel No. 5 that had scented my childhood. "Hi, Mom," I said softly. "Happy birthday, Dad." "No, no, no, no." My father nodded, not rising. "Catherine, glad you could make it." Alex moved around the table to hug me properly. "Thanks for coming, Kat," he whispered. "It means a lot to Mom." Then louder, "Let me introduce everyone. This is Dr. James Harrison, Chief of Surgery and my boss." He gestured to the silver-haired man. "And this is his daughter, Elise." Dr. Harrison stood and extended his hand. "A pleasure to meet you, Catherine. Alex has mentioned you, of course, but he's been surprisingly tight-lipped about details." I shook his hand, noting his firm grip and direct gaze, the confidence of someone accustomed to holding lives in his hands. "The pleasure is mine, Dr. Harrison." "James, please," he insisted. "We're not in the hospital now." I took the empty seat between my mother and Elise, directly across from my father. The arrangement felt symbolic somehow, my mother as buffer, my father as opposition, with Alex and his medical world companions completing the tableau of the life I'd rejected. "So," my father said after I'd settled, "Alex tells us you're doing well in business." The slight pause before the word carried volumes of unspoken judgment. "I am," I replied simply, accepting the glass of wine a server poured. "And congratulations on your birthday, Dad. 65 is a milestone. Hardly retiring age for a surgeon," he said with a thin smile, "though the hospital board keeps hinting." "Robert is being modest," Dr. Harrison interjected. "They've actually been begging him to take on more administrative duties. His department has the best outcomes in the state." "That doesn't surprise me," I said, and meant it. Whatever our differences, my father's surgical skill had never been in question. My mother touched my arm gently. "And you, dear? Alex mentioned you're with a technology company now?" The deliberate vagueness told me everything. They knew little to nothing of my professional life. 10 years of achievements, reduced to a technology company. "Yes," I said. "Horizon Innovations. We develop healthcare management systems, among other enterprise solutions." "Fascinating," Elise said, speaking for the first time. "What exactly do you do there?" Before I could answer, my father interjected. "Catherine always had a knack for computers. Even in high school, She was the one we called when the printer wouldn't work. His tone suggested fixing printers, and running a tech company required similar skill sets. I took a measured sip of wine. I handle strategy and operations. Catherine's being modest, Alex said with a pointed look at our father. She's doing just fine, I interrupted, giving him a subtle headshake. I didn't want my achievements announced like some sort of peace offering. If my family didn't know my position after 10 years, that was a choice on both our parts. The conversation shifted to safer territory. Alex's recent publication in a medical journal, my father's upcoming speaking engagement at a surgical conference, my mother's volunteer work at the Children's Hospital. The familiar rhythm of Jensen family dinner discussion, centered on medicine and good works. I contributed appropriate responses when necessary, asking polite questions about Alex's research and my father's patients. Dr. Harrison and Elise provided welcome diversions, sharing stories of their recent trip to Italy and asking about restaurants in my neighborhood. Through the appetizers and main course, we maintained the delicate dance of a family, pretending the past decade had been ordinary separation rather than estrangement. No one mentioned Harvard Business School. No one asked about my career progression. No one referenced the disappointment that had severed our regular contact. We were actors in a play, reading from a script of pleasantries and carefully navigated small talk, until dessert arrived. The waiter had just placed a chocolate souffle before my father, his favorite. Still, when Dr. Harrison's phone chimed with the distinctive tone of an important message, he glanced at it apologetically. "Excuse me, hospital business never stops. I just need to check this quickly." He scanned his screen, then looked up at me with a furrowed brow and slightly parted lips, the universal expression of surprise. "I'm sorry," he said slowly. "But are you Catherine Jensen, CEO of Horizon Innovations?" The table fell silent. My mother's fork hovered midway to her mouth. My father went completely still. Alex looked down at his dessert, hiding what I suspected was a satisfied smile. "Yes," I answered simply. Dr. Harrison's expression transformed from confusion to astonishment. "CEO? Ma'am?" The honorific slipped out, a doctor's instinctive respect for authority. "I just received an email about the next tech merger. My brother sits on their board." He held up his phone as evidence. "He's been talking about you for months. The youngest CEO to successfully take a healthcare tech company public." The Forbes cover. The silence deepened. I could feel the weight of my family's stares. "You're a CEO?" my father finally managed, the words awkward in his mouth, as though speaking a foreign language. "Yes," I repeated. "For 3 years now." My mother's hand fluttered to her throat, habitual gesture of distress. "But you never said anything." "It never came up," I replied, the simple truth more damning than any accusation. Dr. Harrison, oblivious to the family drama unfolding at the table, continued with genuine admiration. "The integrated platform Horizon developed for surgical departments has revolutionized our scheduling and resource allocation. We implemented it at Memorial last year, reduced overtime costs by 22% while improving surgical outcomes. Brilliant work." My father's face underwent a transformation I'd never witnessed before: shock, giving way to disbelief. Then something more complex. Pride, confusion, and unmistakable shame, all battling for dominance in expressions that had always been so carefully controlled. "I didn't realize," he began, then stopped, uncharacteristically lost for words. Elise looked between us all, clearly sensing the tension. "Wait, you didn't know your daughter is one of the most influential women in healthcare technology?" My mother's eyes glistened. "We knew Catherine was doing well, of course, but she's always been so private about her work." The fiction was offered, kindly protecting the family image even now. But Dr. Harrison wasn't letting it go. Private? He laughed. There was a 6-page spread in Forbes. The Surgeon of Sick Systems, they called her. The profile mentioned how you apply almost medical precision to diagnosing and treating organizational inefficiencies. He turned to my father. Robert, you must have been bursting with pride. It seems medical thinking runs in the family after all, just applied differently. My father reached for his water glass, his hand not quite steady. Yes, he said after a moment. Catherine has always forged her own path. The understatement hung in the air between us, heavy with a decade of unacknowledged achievement. Alex broke the tension. The soufflé will collapse if we don't eat it soon, he said practically. And Dad, you should open your gift from Kat before it gets too late. I shot him a panicked look. I hadn't brought a gift, hadn't even considered it in my anxiety about the dinner itself. It's being delivered tomorrow, Alex covered smoothly. But you should know what it is tonight. All eyes turned to me, expectantly. I hesitated only a moment before inspiration struck. It's a consultation, I said. Horizon is developing a new surgical scheduling AI. I thought your department might benefit from being early adopters. Free of charge, of course. The gift was improvised, but genuine, something I could actually arrange with a few calls tomorrow. My father blinked rapidly. That's very thoughtful. Thank you. Dr. Harrison nearly dropped his spoon. Early access to the new Horizon AI? Robert, do you have any idea what other hospitals would pay for that opportunity? Your daughter just gave you $1 million birthday present. For the first time that evening, my father looked directly at me, really looked, with the same intensity he must have used when diagnosing complex cases. I met his gaze steadily, no longer the disappointed daughter, but a professional equal, more than equal, in this moment. I had no idea, he said quietly. 3 words again, but these carried a different weight than the ones spoken at my graduation. These acknowledged a failure of vision, his, not mine. Dessert concluded in a strange new atmosphere. Dr. Harrison peppered me with questions about Horizon's technology and future plans. Elise mentioned friends who had tried to recruit me for non-profit boards. My mother kept reaching over to touch my arm, as though reassuring herself I was really there. My father said little, but I caught him watching me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. As the evening wound down, Dr. Harrison insisted on exchanging contact information. The hospital board would be very interested in having you speak at our next leadership retreat, he said. And frankly, I'd like my daughter to meet more women like you. Elise is considering business school herself. I'd be happy to, I replied, handing him my card, the simple white one with just my name and contact information, not the corporate one with Horizon's logo and my title. He glanced at it and smiled. Understated. I like that. In a CEO. As we prepared to leave, my mother hugged me tightly. You'll come for Sunday dinner next week? Please? There's so much to catch up on. Before I could answer, my father stepped forward. I'll walk you to your car, Catherine. The night air was cool and carried the scent of rain, a spring storm approaching. City lights reflected off the wet pavement as we stepped outside, creating shimmering pools beneath the street lamps. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The sounds of traffic and distant sirens filled the space between us. I had imagined this moment countless times over the years. What I might say if given the chance to confront my father about that graduation day. In my fantasies, I was eloquent and cutting, laying out my accomplishments like evidence in a prosecution. Or I was coldly dismissive, treating him with the same casual disregard he had shown me. But standing beside him now, those rehearsed speeches evaporated. He walked with his hands in his pockets, shoulders slightly, Hunchada posture I'd rarely seen in a man who typically commanded every room he entered. We reached my car, a sleek black Tesla, and I pressed the key to unlock it. Still, he said nothing, seemingly studying the vehicle with unusual intensity. "Nice car," he finally commented, running a finger along the doorframe. "It's practical," I replied. "Good safety ratings." He nodded, a hint of a smile touching his lips. "Still pragmatic." That hasn't changed. The observation surprised me that he remembered anything about the person I had been before becoming a disappointment. "Some things don't change," I agreed cautiously. He drew a deep breath, the kind that precedes difficult statements in difficult conversations. "I've been wrong before, as a doctor. Misdiagnoses happen, even to the best of us. But we acknowledge them, learn from them, and adjust the treatment plan." He paused. "I was wrong about you, Catherine." The admission hung in the night air between us. I had waited a decade to hear something like it. Yet, now that the words were spoken, I found myself unsure how to respond. "Why didn't you tell us?" he asked, echoing my mother's earlier question. "About the CEO position, the Forbes cover, all of it." I leaned against my car, buying time to organize thoughts that suddenly seemed scattered. "Would it have mattered?" "Of course it would have mattered," he said, a flash of the old impatience breaking through. Then, more measured, "Your mother keeps a folder. Articles, press releases, anything she finds about you online. She's been collecting them for years." This revelation landed like an unexpected diagnosis. "She never said anything." "She didn't show me until last year," he admitted. "Said I wasn't ready to hear it." "And were you ready?" He looked away, watching a couple emerge from the restaurant, laughing together. "No," he said finally. "I wasn't. Pride is a dangerous condition, Catherine, sometimes terminal to relationships if left untreated." The medical metaphor wasn't lost on me. It was the closest thing to his native language, the framework through which he interpreted the world. "I thought," he began, then stopped, recalibrating. "I was trying to protect you from disappointment. Medicine was certain. Business was not." "I didn't need protection," I said. "I needed support." "And now you don't need either," he observed, a statement rather than a question. The words were delivered without rancor, but carried a hint of regret acknowledgement of a connection permanently altered. Years ago, it would have felt like victory to hear him admit I had succeeded without him. Now, it just felt hollow. "Everyone needs both," I replied honestly. "I just learned to find them elsewhere." He nodded, eyes glistening slightly in the streetlight. Whether from emotion or just the misting rain that had begun to fall, I couldn't tell. "Your mother misses you terribly," he said. "We both do." The admission cost him. I could see it in the tightening of his jaw, the physician's discipline exerted to maintain composure. Robert Jensen, Maryland, didn't do emotional vulnerability. That he was attempting it now spoke volumes. "I miss parts of us too," I conceded. "The Sunday crosswords, Mom's lasagna nights, your terrible dad jokes." "My jokes were excellent," he protested mildly, the ghost of our old banter surfacing briefly. A moment of silence stretched between us, more comfortable than before. "Dr. Harrison seemed impressed with your company," he said finally. "We've done good work," I acknowledged. "The healthcare systems needed improvement." "So you ended up in medicine after all," he observed, "just treating institutional diseases instead of human ones." The insight surprised me that he could see the parallels I'd long recognized, but never articulated. I suppose I did. "Your grandfather would have appreciated the irony," he said. "He was always frustrated by hospital bureaucracy. Used to say some administrator needed to perform organizational surgery to cut out the waste. I had never heard this story, had never known I shared this perspective with the grandfather who had died before I finished high school. Another connection lost to years of estrangement. I'd have liked to talk to him about it, I said softly. My father nodded, understanding the subtext. How many conversations had we lost? How many connections severed? How much family history had failed to transfer because of one rigid expectation and one unyielding response? It's not too late, he said, the words carrying weight beyond the immediate context. For us, I mean. I studied him, the proud surgeon, humbling himself in a way I'd never witnessed. The rain was falling more steadily now, dotting his silver hair with tiny droplets that caught the light. No, I agreed carefully. But it's not the same either. No, he echoed. It can't be. Shouldn't be, perhaps. He straightened, meeting my eyes directly. You've built something remarkable, Catherine. Without any help from us. That deserves respect. The validation, so long sought, and now finally offered, felt both satisfying and strangely anticlimactic. I had outgrown the desperate need for his approval somewhere in the years of separation, yet still found myself warming to its belated arrival. Thank you, I said simply. Your mother wants to show you the folder, he continued. All the clippings and printouts. She's quite proud, though she's been careful about expressing it around me. The thought of my mother secretly tracking my career, collecting evidence of my success like precious artifacts, brought an unexpected tightness to my throat. I'd like to see it. Sunday dinner, then? He asked, an invitation rather than a demand. I hesitated. One dinner, one revelation, one sidewalk conversation couldn't erase a decade of estrangement. The path back, if there was one, would be complicated, measured, perhaps never complete. I have a board meeting Monday morning, I said, but I could come for a few hours. He nodded, accepting the conditional acceptance for what it was: not forgiveness, not reconciliation, but a willingness to explore the possibility of both. Catherine, he said as I opened my car door, one more thing. He seemed to struggle with the words. I've followed your company more closely than I let on. The patient outcome improvements from your hospital management systems are significant. You've probably saved more lives with your software than I have with my scalpel over the past 5 years. The admission cost him. I could see it in his expression. For a surgeon to acknowledge another path might save more lives than his own was nearly heretical. Different tools, I said, offering him grace in the moment. Same goal. A smile flickered across his face, genuine if small. Perhaps medicine runs in the family after all. We didn't hug. There were too many years, too many unspoken words between us for that. But as I drove away, my phone pinged with a text message from Alex. That went better than expected. Dad actually asked for your company's investor presentation. Mom's already planning Sunday's menu. Progress? I smiled despite myself. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't even reconciliation, not yet. The wounds of rejection were too deep. The scar tissue too thick to dissolve in a single evening. But it was a beginning. A diagnosis, perhaps, with a treatment plan to follow. Another text arrived as I waited at a stoplight. My mother this time. So proud of you, sweetheart. Always have been. Dad too, in his way. See you Sunday? Gira. I typed a response before the light changed. I'll be there. Save me some lasagna. As I drove through the rain-slicked streets toward my penthouse, I realized the voice in my head had changed. For years, it had echoed with, "What a disappointment." Now, it carried different words, not erasing the old ones, but offering a counterbalance. CEO, ma'am? Sometimes, validation comes from unexpected sources. Sometimes, it arrives too late to heal all wounds. And sometimes, it creates just enough space for something new to grow in the scarred places. I pulled into my building's garage, nodding to the attendant who greeted me by name with practiced deference. Tomorrow, I would return to being Catherine Jensen, CEO of Horizon Innovations, with meetings to run and decisions to make that would affect thousands of lives and livelihoods. I would step back into the world I had built for myself, brick by determined brick. But for now, in the quiet of my car, I was simply Catherine, daughter, sister, once a disappointment, now something more complex in the eyes of my family, not healed, but perhaps healing, not forgiven, but moving toward forgiveness, both giving and receiving it. It wasn't everything, but it was enough to build upon.